Now let us briefly review the complete plot of Pygmalion through its 5 acts. Act 1 introduces Eliza Doolittle as a poor flower girl selling flowers in Covent Garden. Here we also meet Professor Henry Higgins, who demonstrates his extraordinary knowledge of phonetics by identifying people's backgrounds through their accents. During this act, Higgins boldly claims that he can transform Eliza into a refined lady simply by teaching her proper speech. Act 2 begins when Eliza arrives at Higgins' house seeking speech lessons. Higgins accepts the challenge and makes a bet with Colonel Pickering that he can pass Eliza off as a duchess in society. We are also introduced to Alfred Doolittle, Eliza's father. Eliza's long process of training and transformation begins. Act 3 focuses on the first social test. At Mrs. Higgins' tea party, Eliza demonstrates her newly learned pronunciation and manners. Although she speaks correctly, some of her topics of conversation still reveal her working-class background. During this act, Freddie Ainsford Hill becomes attracted to Eliza, while Mrs. Higgins warns Higgins and Pickering that they are treating Eliza as an experiment rather than as a human being. Act 4 contains the climax and emotional turning point of the play. After Eliza's great success at the embassy party, Higgins celebrates his victory and largely ignores Eliza's contribution. Feeling used and unappreciated, Eliza rebels emotionally and confronts Higgins about her future and her dignity. Act 5 brings the resolution. Eliza emerges as an independent and self-confident woman capable of making her own choices. Meanwhile, Alfred Doolittle unexpectedly becomes wealthy and struggles with the responsibilities that come with respectability. The play concludes with an open ending, leaving the audience to think about Eliza's future and the deeper questions of identity, class, and independence. Thus, the plot of Pygmalion is not merely a story of learning proper speech. It is a journey of personal growth, self-discovery, and social transformation. In this section, we will explore the detailed act-wise summary of Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. The play is divided into 5 acts, each marking an important stage in Eliza Doolittle's transformation from a poor flower girl into a confident and independent woman. Act 1 serves as the exposition of the play. It introduces the major characters, establishes the central conflict, and presents the experiment that will drive the entire story. The act is set on a rainy night in Covent Garden, London, outside St. Paul's Church. Because of the heavy rain, several people gather under the church portico seeking shelter. This ordinary and realistic setting immediately reflects Shaw's commitment to realism. The first important character introduced is Eliza Doolittle, a poor flower girl who earns her living by selling flowers on the streets. She belongs to the working class and speaks in a strong Cockney dialect. We are also introduced to Professor Henry Higgins, a brilliant expert in phonetics, and Colonel Pickering, a respected scholar of Indian dialects and languages. In addition, we meet Freddie Ainsford Hill, his mother Mrs. Ainsford Hill, and his sister Clara, who belong to the middle class. The first significant incident occurs when Freddie accidentally bumps into Eliza while hurrying through the crowd. As a result, her flower basket falls to the ground and the flowers scatter everywhere. Eliza becomes upset and angrily complains because her livelihood has been damaged. To compensate for the accident, Freddie's mother pays Eliza for the flowers. Shortly afterward, Colonel Pickering also gives her some money. This incident highlights Eliza's economic vulnerability and dependence on daily earnings. Meanwhile, Higgins quietly observes the people around him and writes notes about their speech patterns. Seeing him recording information, some members of the crowd become suspicious and assume that he may be a policeman or government official. Eliza becomes particularly frightened because she fears getting into trouble. At this point, Higgins demonstrates his extraordinary skill. He reveals that he can identify where people come from simply by listening to their accents. One after another, he accurately identifies their places of origin. The crowd is both amazed and uneasy by this remarkable ability. The most important moment of the act occurs when Higgins makes his famous claim. Referring to Eliza, he confidently declares that he could transform this poor flower girl into a duchess simply by teaching her proper English pronunciation and manners. This statement introduces the central experiment of the play. Soon afterward, Higgins and Pickering discover that they already know of each other's work. Both are distinguished scholars in the field of phonetics and language. Delighted by this meeting, they decide to visit each other and continue their discussions. At the end of the act, Higgins casually throws a handful of coins into Eliza's basket. For Eliza, this amount of money is extraordinary. Overjoyed by her unexpected fortune, she decides to do something she has never done before: ride home in a taxi. Thus, Act 1 establishes the major characters, introduces the theme of language and social class, and sets in motion the experiment that will transform Eliza's life and drive the rest of the play. Act 1 is much more than an introduction to the story. It establishes the major characters, introduces the central themes, and presents the social issues that Shaw will explore throughout the play. Let us first consider the introduction of the main characters. Eliza Doolittle is presented as a poor flower girl from the working class. She is uneducated and speaks with a strong Cockney accent. However, beneath her poverty lies ambition and determination. Even in the opening scene, we can see that Eliza wants a better life and is willing to work for it. Professor Henry Higgins is introduced as an exceptionally intelligent man. His knowledge of phonetics is remarkable, and he approaches language scientifically. However, he is also proud, confident, and somewhat domineering. From the beginning, he enjoys controlling situations and demonstrating his superiority. Colonel Pickering provides a contrast to Higgins. He is polite, gentle, and respectful. While Higgins impresses people with his intelligence, Pickering wins respect through his kindness and good manners. The second important aspect of Act 1 is the introduction of the play's central theme: language equals social status. Throughout the act, Shaw demonstrates that speech determines a person's social position. Higgins can identify people's backgrounds simply by listening to their accents. In Edwardian England, pronunciation often revealed a person's class, education, and opportunities. For Shaw, accent is not merely a way of speaking. It becomes a social passport. Proper English can open doors, while a working-class accent can create barriers. This leads directly to the main premise of the play. The central question becomes, can language transform identity? Can a poor flower girl become a lady simply by changing the way she speaks? Higgins believes the answer is yes. His challenge to transform Eliza into a duchess becomes the foundation of the entire plot. Act 1 also provides a clear picture of the Victorian and Edwardian class system. Several social classes appear together in the same scene. Higgins and Pickering represent the educated upper class. Clara and Mrs. Ainsford Hill represent the respectable but financially struggling middle class, often called the genteel poor. Eliza represents the working class, while the bystanders and street people represent the lower and middle tradesmen of London. By placing all these classes together under the church portico, Shaw creates a miniature version of English society. Another important idea is the significance of speech. Higgins' ability to identify people's origins through accents demonstrates the social power of language. Eliza's Cockney English symbolizes poverty, lack of education, and low social status. In contrast, refined speech symbolizes authority, education, and privilege. The act also highlights clothing as a social symbol. Eliza's shabby hat, worn-out boots, and dirty clothes immediately identify her as poor. Meanwhile, the upper-class characters wear elegant evening clothes and present a polished appearance. Shaw shows that society judges people instantly based on external appearances. Clothing becomes a visual sign of class identity, just as accent becomes an auditory sign of class identity. This connects directly to Shaw's social criticism. Throughout the act, society judges people according to their accent, dress, and manners rather than their intelligence, character, or humanity. Shaw criticizes this prejudice and exposes how superficial such judgments can be. Finally, Act 1 demonstrates Shaw's commitment to realism. The setting is a real London location. Poverty is portrayed honestly rather than romantically. Social inequality is shown as an everyday reality. The characters speak naturally, and the problems they face are genuine social issues rather than melodramatic inventions. Therefore, Act 1 serves as the foundation of the entire play. It introduces the characters, establishes the experiment, presents the theme of language and class, and begins Shaw's powerful critique of social prejudice and inequality. Through a seemingly ordinary encounter on a rainy London night, Shaw opens a profound discussion about identity, opportunity, and human worth. Act 1 introduces many of the major themes that will develop throughout the rest of the play. The first major theme is language and class. Shaw shows that society judges people largely by the way they speak. A person's accent can determine how others perceive their intelligence, education, and social position. Closely connected to this is the theme of social mobility. Higgins believes that Eliza can improve her social status through education and proper speech. This raises the question of whether social class is fixed or can be changed. The theme of poverty is also introduced through Eliza's difficult life as a flower seller. Her struggle highlights the economic hardships faced by the working class. Another important theme is identity. Throughout the act, Shaw suggests that society often defines people by external features such as accent and appearance rather than by the true character. The theme of appearance versus reality is equally significant. People assume that they can understand someone's worth simply by observing how they dress or speak. Shaw challenges this assumption throughout the play. The act also emphasizes the importance of education. Higgins' experiment is based on the belief that learning can transform a person's opportunities and social position. Finally, the theme of transformation is introduced. Higgins' claim that he can turn Eliza into a duchess establishes the central transformation that drives the entire story. Let us now consider some important symbols. The rain symbolizes more than weather. It brings together people from different social classes under the same shelter, creating an opportunity for interaction and conflict. The flowers symbolize Eliza's fragile social condition. Like the flowers she sells, her livelihood is delicate and easily threatened. The taxi symbolizes a temporary rise in status. For a poor flower girl, riding in a taxi is an extraordinary experience and represents her dream of a better life. Clothing functions as a symbol of social identity. Throughout the play, dress becomes an external marker of class, respectability, and social acceptance. To conclude, here are some quick revision points. Act 1 introduces the three key characters, Eliza Doolittle, Professor Higgins, and Colonel Pickering. The main issue established is the relationship between language and social class. Higgins makes his famous claim that he can transform Eliza through speech training. Shaw begins his attack on Victorian and Edwardian class prejudice. The act demonstrates that speech equals power in society. Most importantly, we see that Eliza dreams of a better life, and this dream becomes the starting point of her remarkable journey of transformation.